We can't get out of burnout by ourselves. And so the more we can program ourselves to say, oh, you should, because I am a well-trained oldest daughter. But in my head, I'm like, you don't know my life. You don't understand. And finally, somebody told my best friend to start asking what she could do to help.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. My new best friend, Kristen, is here with us today, and I am so thrilled to have her here. We all hit that burnout stage that morning when you just go, I just need 5 more minutes. Oh, please, just help me. Kristen is going to help us to let go of some of that burnout by knowing it's not our fault and how we get through it and how we can start recovering with lots of little things we can do during the day. And this is what I've always need is, what's that thing I can do while I'm doing so much other stuff and still have time for everything? So Kristen's going to bring us some magic, and we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor and come back. Kristen, magically help my burnout disappear. We'll be right back.
This is Adam Adams, co-founder of Optimized LLC, where we take the guesswork out of your health. If you're feeling exhausted, struggling with weight, or just not feeling yourself anymore, your hormones might be the problem. And that's why we test, not guess, analyzing your blood work to pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. At Optimized LLC, we help you rebalance your hormones, boost energy, and reclaim your life. Don't settle for normal. Aim for optimized. Just go to optimized.com to book your free introductory coaching call. It's a free call to help you take the first step toward feeling your best.
All right, Kristen, the information about you is in the show notes. So how can I let go of some of this burnout? Some days just need time to breathe.
Yes. First of all, breathing is incredibly important. And that sounds really trite. And, we all joke about it a little bit. But one of the reasons that breathing and intentionally breathing and deep breathing is so important is that it is an element of stopping the stress cycle. And the stress cycle is something that in our bodies is actually good. Like, you want the stress cycle because the stress cycle is what kicks off fight, flight, or freeze when you say, see a bear. The issue is that it also kicks off when the photocopier jams or your kid has a meltdown or whatever. There's not like different stress cycles that get kicked off at different times. There's the stress cycle. And one of the ways that it ends is to burnout comes when you've been stuck in a stress cycle for so long that it essentially becomes calcified. You can't get out of the stress cycle naturally anymore. Your body has taught itself and protected itself and done all these things because your brain is always into protecting you. Your brain always wants to make sure you are safe. Again, but it's designed for bears and not for photocopiers. So it's a little bit of an issue there. So we have to trick it into helping us in a certain way. And breathing is a really big way. So you ask, how do we kind of do that? The next time there's a hyper stressful event or even a minorly stressful event or anything happens that makes you want to go, I would like off the planet now, please. Thank you so much. Take a deep breath as you can. Take a walk, if possible. Moving your body does really help. It can be a walk to the bathroom. I don't care. But remove yourself from the situation, move your body, 5 deep breaths in a mirror, against a wall, again, whatever. And then it'll make it a little bit easier to tackle those things because burnout is not just an emotional thing or a mental thing. It's a physical thing. And most of you know that. You felt it in your body. You felt the molasses drive you back into the bed rather than get out of it, or sitting in your car and saying, yeah, I know I have to go in for that meeting. I respect that. It is my job. I would rather slide down a banister of nails than do that right now. That's the kind of vibe. However, it isn't your fault for needing to do that. You haven't failed at being a human, a woman, a mom, a boss, a worker, or whatever. You just live in a culture that demands your burnout for you to be successful. And that is not your fault. However, you can fight back against it. with these little things like breathing, but also some other techniques I can get into in a little bit.
Yeah, for years I turned off all emotion and just turned on robot mode and just went through the motions of life, because if the emotions were there, I was going to collapse and be no good for anybody. And so a robot was much better than a mother or worker who cried or screamed at everybody. So emotions just got turned off. And it felt kind of lonely, like that part of me needed to be in my life and I had to get it back. And for me, breathing was that first thing, is just learning to take that controlled breath and being able to refocus. Because the second you start counting a breath, in, hold, out, hold, that little cycle, that rhythm of counting brought me out of it for a bit. But how do you stay out of it?
Excellent question. So first of all, let me say, staying out of it forever, for the rest of your life, probably isn't fully possible because life continues to be super stressful. So I don't want to say I'm coming here to sell you the ultimate solution that will work forever and you'll never have to deal with this again. I don't want you to go into it like that. What I do have is some tips that will make it harder for you to tip into that place. Things that will help you recognize when you're getting into that place and do something about it. It is not a permanent barrier to where you will never, ever possibly be burned out again. Like, parents get sick and kids get sick and jobs change and, like your house catches on fire. Like there are lots and lots of things that can happen. So we have 4, and by we, I mean myself and my research partner. Our name's Dr. Erin Hinson. We've worked together for years now, and we wrote the book on burnout together. So we've been researching this for a while. So we have 4 steps, categories, columns, pick the thing you want, of practices and behaviors we would recommend integrating into your life. That probably sounds big. Friends, I promise you, these are the tiniest things, like breathing in a mirror. Like it is that level of stuff. So the first one, they all start with R, so we can remember them. They're the 4 R's: rest, rejuvenation, realignment, reconnection. So rest is the horrible news that you do actually have to sleep. And that feels insane and it feels annoying. A lot of us have trouble sleeping and we can't handle it. We don't know how to sleep better. One of the small things you can do in that particular situation is get a sleep study done and have somebody who is an expert in that tell you how you're sleeping. More Americans have sleep apnea than they know. And that is a major thing that disrupts your sleep. So sleep is really important. Investing in your sleep hygiene is particularly important. So that's a big one. We always joke that, if you listen to a lot of different podcasts, you will be sold the same 5 mattresses and the same 3 pillows over and over again. Try one. Try one. See if that helps better than the one you have. So the second one is rejuvenation, and that is you need to have fun. That often is one of the ones that people really fall down on when we talk to them about this, because they're like, I don't have time for fun. Okay, totally fair. If you have 3 minutes to play a phone game that makes you happy but is silly, that's having fun. If you have a couple minutes to play with your kid, that's great. And we can work up to you doing something fun just for you. And creating that space in a little bit that you're not, I don't know, for instance, I really, really like sports. They are my favorite live thing to do pretty much all the time. And so in order to carve out that time, I pick out things ahead of time. I put them on my calendar. I plan around, this is when I'm going to this hockey game. This is when I'm going to this baseball game. And those are things that are fun for me. And I make sure that there's happening because I've got, honestly, the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. And so figuring that out is a challenge. But I love Taylor Swift. I love Disney. I love all these things that just purely make me happy. And the key for this one is that the best that we can encourage you, Erin and I, if she was on this cast right now, what she would say is to encourage you that joy is not productive in the way you think it is. Having fun so that you do more at your job or do something else is great. It should be a side benefit. Have fun to have fun. That's it.
You're triggering some minds. So, as a software developer, project manager, there is a lot of stress as you're getting out a new release or a new application that has a deadline to get out. And I would bring not home, I would bring to the office toys and crap for the guys, because most of them were guys, to just play with. And what they loved the most were those smashy, squishy balls that you could throw on the ceiling and they would stick, or on the windows or the walls. And that just gave them such a giggle. I mean, and the boss could care less because he knew the guys were letting go of that craziness. And so it definitely works if you can just find that interrupter. Like, I'm having a problem with this software and I can't figure out what's wrong. And you throw that thing against the wall and watch it splat, yet it's still intact, is rewarding.
Yeah, when I was in grad school, we would stop and watch cat videos on YouTube. Like that, back before YouTube was what it is now. I was in grad school 20 years ago. So like it's all of that. So yeah, absolutely having fun. Cause the other thing is like fun just reminds you that you're a human and not like like you're a human being instead of a human doing, as the saying goes. That's one of the things that fun does. And one of the other things that does that is our third R, which is realignment. And this is, if you are somebody with a spiritual practice, this is that R. Whatever that spiritual practice is, whether it's weekly religious service attendance or it is, I go for walks on the beach and I talk to the universe, whatever that is, we would encourage you to make time for that. If that's not part of your life, the real point of realignment is to remember that you are important and loved and all of those things that are true. You are not actually imperative to the turning of the universe. Like the tides will come in if you take a nap. We promise. And so remembering your place and who you are and who you're connected to and all those kind of things is a key part of this. And for some of us, we do that every day. Some other people do it every week. Some other people do it, every 6 months, they walk through a forest. Whatever it looks like for you, make it intentional. And the fourth one is reconnection, which is be with your people. This is not be with people in proximity. This is not walk through Times Square. This is craft time with the people who know you, who know who you are when you have forgotten. When you need them to speak back to you who you are, because a huge part of burnout, as Laura Jane already alluded to, is an abandonment of your true self in a way. So if you can surround yourself with people who remember that person, who know the core of you, who are probably worried about you, to be completely honest, and spend intentional time with them. Whenever we are with people that we are known, with people with whom we belong, there's parts of us that energize and activate that don't in other places. And as burnout, truly what it is the limiting of your emotional capacity. The more you can spend time with people who kind of extend that emotional capacity, the more, barriers, the more safeguards you'll have built up against that shrinking happening, again. So again, it's you got to sleep, you got to be happy, you got to remember who you are, and you got to be with people that remind you. And that can be 5 minutes a day, that can be 5 minutes a month. Build tiny intentional practices into whatever you're doing, and then build up as you have more time.
When you talk about your people, I think about when I was in that really bad burnout mode and my husband would say things like, come home earlier, and I would just get that anger at him. Like, what are you telling me to do? I've got to keep working. I've got to bring home money or we're going to just die. And I would get really defensive. So for me, I had to reframe his words. I had to reframe it. He's not telling me what to do. He loves me and wants me to be healthy and happy. And when I started to realize that people that were giving me little things to do weren't trying to control me, they were ideas. They were something to try. And when I took it as words of respect and words of support, it's changed the way I looked at those things. And so I know so many times we're in the middle of burnout and someone says, come home before 9 o'clock. And you go, I can't. Trying to control me, if you can change that anger, just that little teeny tiny bit to thank you so much for caring about me. And that's what I started telling my husband. Thank you so much for caring about me because he did. And that changed my response. Instead of adding more stress, it was somebody cares and how powerful that is.
Yeah. What's the C.S. Lewis quote that I love so much is and I'm paraphrasing, I don't quite have it perfect, but, I was so well acquainted with anger, I realized her real name was grief. And I think that is at the core of so much of this. Like I've been in and out of burnout for most of my life. I had a really significant burnout episode to the spring of 2023. Ended up having a complete mental health crisis, had to change all my medications. It was a really, really significant thing. And when I started with a whole new set of therapists, I remember one of them said, you have got to let yourself be angry, because I'm like the stereotypical oldest daughter. Like, I don't get angry. I don't do that. And so as I let myself get angry in a few sessions, and he was like, okay, now I think you need to let yourself get sad. And that was harder. That was so much harder, to feel like I had a right to be sad, to feel like I had a right to grieve things in my life that weren't the way I wanted them to be. And once again, I think that's a very woman in America thing, and how many of us are. I don't have children, and I'm still expected to be a caregiver, and I'm still expected to have that mentality. I think it's a real issue. And what I would give as an offering to anyone who has been in the situation you just described, Laura Jane, is, or on the other side, if you've been that person's husband, if you're looking at somebody and you love somebody who's in the middle of this, may I always recommend questions over statements. So, what can I do to help you come home earlier? What would it look like for you to come home earlier? Can we make a plan for you to come home earlier? Tends to invite collaboration rather than back up. It could still absolutely invite defensiveness. Please hear me. But it could create some more space for conversation, because remember the fourth R, we can't do this alone. We can't get out of burnout by ourselves. And so the more we can program ourselves to say, okay, when I have gotten people saying, you should, oh my gosh, do I go feral? I am in my head, not to them out loud, because I am a well-trained oldest daughter. But in my head, I'm like, you don't know my life. You don't understand. You don't. And finally, somebody told my best friend to start asking what she could do to help. And the first couple times was scary. I didn't know what to say. I had no idea what to give her. I didn't know what was going on. And then after a while, we figured that I could say, could you send me cat gifts? Can you make sure I've eaten lunch every day? Because I don't do that all the time. And it was humiliating, and it was hard, and it was all those things to admit that I couldn't do any of this by myself. And I am alive because of it. So.
And I totally agree with having that other person. But the way you reframe things is exactly what I mean by silencing the inner bully. We tell ourselves, I have to stay late, instead of saying, what could I do to get out of here earlier? And when we start framing our own internal words like a friend would do to us, or like I wanted a spouse. And, we worked through it. He started changing his words. I started changing the way I reacted. And so, but can you do that to yourselves? We beat ourselves up constantly. Oh my gosh, I have a meeting at 9 and I booked another one at 10. I'm not going to have time to pee and I don't know what to do. Instead of, how can I make this work? And the second you give yourself that opportunity to explore your options, you're not stuck. And it just takes a pound. Maybe you have 1,000,000 pounds on you, but it'll take a pound. And each pound you let off is less stress. And it's be your own best friend and have one too, because it always helps to have lots around.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of social science research and psychological research. I'm not a psychologist. I have a social work degree and a sociology degree and an anthropology degree. And And so this is not, the inner life is not as much my specialty. But I've done enough reading and I've been in enough therapy to know that the first step is actually the hardest. And that's not just a fortune cookie or a stereotype. It is the scariest thing to trust that something could be different, because we adapt to what is awful in our own self. Like, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't is actually like a physiological statement almost.
Mhm.
And so putting down that 1 pound, putting down that other thing, whatever the first step is in the process is the hardest. And so you'll do that first step, you'll get used to that, that'll be okay. But then unfortunately, about 6 months, you've got to take another first step. And it never gets easier. That first one just never gets easier. But you might have systems in place in your life that make it more palatable. That you can go to this friend or you can do this thing. Or, like, for instance, I'm a very high strategic thinker. It's one of the gifts I have. Most of my friends don't have that same gift. And so when they are stuck about something, they will come to me and say, here's my problem. What do I do? And I will say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? No, I've never thought about that. And I'll say, okay, do you want me to help you with any of these? And that it's not me being controlling. It's just, this is my gift and this is how I can help. So of course, that often means I don't ever ask for help, which is terrible and awful. And please hear me, those 4 R's that we have come up with, Erin and I practice every single day. Some of it poorly, some of it great. Because the real secret of life is that balance is not a static thing. You never achieve balance and then are done. You have arrived, you are balanced, you are forever still. It is just not how it works. In the same way that you're never fully out of burnout, you're never fully, like, you're all these kind of things, because humans are wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey things, and we just kind of go back and forth. So the real secret is that balance is a controlled wobble. You're going to fall down. You're going to get bruised. It's not going to be great. And then you're going to get back up and try again. And so part of understanding that balance, understanding that that's kind of the goal, is to wobble. The goal is to wobble. The goal is to remember that we wobble. Again, that becomes easier in saying, let me put this thing down so that I can get to that wobble. Because that is the goal. The goal is not static perfection, because that's impossible. I tried really hard for a long time to get there. So please take it on my personal testimony that perfectionism is not possible. All of that to say, I know this feels overwhelming. And I know this feels strange and scary. And I know this feels whatever. And it might not feel that today, but it'll feel that in 6 months, or it felt that 6 years ago. You are worth trying this. I promise.
You know, when you're talking about you got to keep doing it, I use so many different analogies. Like, you can go to the gym and you can get a 6-pack. It doesn't stay. We know that. We got to keep working out to have it. You can shower and do your hair and look great. Guess what? You get to do it again tomorrow and the next day. All of this inner work and all of this letting go of burnout is a daily cleanse, a daily process. And meditation, prayer, whatever you do, that calming, the breath work, that calming is what brings you back to that center. And the more you do it, the more it's just natural. You know, the guys that go to the gym every day, and I call it guys, the people, because, you know, we all can do it, but they love it, and they do it because they love it, not anymore because they want this 6-pack. It might have started that way, but they go there now because of the joy. I do my breath work because of the peace that it brings me. I do my reflection because it gives me direction for tomorrow. It teaches me what didn't go right and what did go right, and how I want my day to be tomorrow. And it's that daily shower, or that daily or twice or 3 times a day brushing your teeth, whatever you do. But it's so simple just to add it to, I know, it's like I can't do breath work. Do it while you shower. You can do it. It's hard when you're brushing your teeth, so that one doesn't count. because I've tried. So when can you fit it in? While you're driving, that 2 seconds before you get out of the car and go into the home, or, that pause to be with you and not the rest of the world.
One of the things I've learned in a lifetime of walking with other people that have had trauma and lots of trauma myself is that we'll say things like, I have no idea how to do this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. The how is a really big question. And what I've learned is the only answer is you do it. You decide to do it and you do it. And many years ago, my father was in a significant cardiac event when we were on vacation in Mexico. And he was taken to a hospital in Cozumel. We were taken care of beautifully. Costa Med, shout out, wonderful, wonderful hospital. And at the time, he was still the owner and CEO and president and all the other titles we gave him of our company, Abbey Companies. And so he was in a coma for a few days and all these kind of other things. And I remember my brother and I stood there just staring at each other for a minute. And we knew we were going to be involved in the company someday. It was abstract. Someday we'll do this. And we watched the ambulance pull away and he goes, well, someday just became today because we have no idea what's about to happen. And so we got pretty strategic and figured out what was going on. And looking back, people will say, well, how did you do that? And I'm like, I woke up every morning and knew that this had to get done. I had to go to the hospital. There wasn't an option because I had to call Independence Blue Cross to see how we were going to get him home. And all these kind of things, you just do it. And that sounds so intense, but I will tell you, I believe firmly as women, we are much more culturally engaged and culturally programmed to just do it. And there is an area in all of our lives that we, without even thinking, just do it. Which is one of the reasons, the area in which we don't, that we feel really overwhelmed, it's harder to just do it. I get that because there's an imbalance of emotional capacity in your life. It's very, very common. I have it too. But the secret is you already have it in you. So if you can get up and take care of your kids without even thinking about it, then you can return the email. Take a deep breath and return the email. You can do it. And that sounds harsh, I think, sometimes. It's a very suck it up buttercup thing, which I don't like. But I also think it's just brass tacks reality. You just have to do it. And you will also learn in your body, say anyone who has ever suffered from clinical depression or I have bipolar, type 1 bipolar. So I go back and forth between the two a lot, mania and depression. I can feel the difference in my body between chemically, I cannot do this, and emotionally, I cannot do this. And the more we engage with with that distinction, chemically, I cannot do this is a call to my psychiatrist. Emotionally, I cannot do this is 3 deep breaths and get it done. And that's a practice. That's a practice. And that's a knowledge. And that's all those kind of things. And I haven't really said it yet, Laura Jane, but I want to just say, this is really messy. It's really simple stuff. We can write it down in a sentence, but it's messy and it's hard and your tactics might change. Musicals used to be huge self-care for me. That was a really big deal, was going to see musicals. For a whole host of reasons, that's no longer true. And I've had to come up with other things and do other things that make me happy and exhale and all this other stuff. I used to be really into, a huge part of my understanding of myself was how I dressed. And this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to look. And honestly, then COVID happened and I work in a dye factory. I own a dye factory as part of my job. And so black leggings and black hoodies became very quickly my entire wardrobe. And so I had to shift what that looked like and my sense of self. We do this all the time. I firmly believe that everyone can do it. We mostly, very, very frankly, have to want to.
And wanting to make that change is that hard first step.
Mm-hmm.
And once you experience a shift, it gets a little bit easier. And with each little step, I call it, that peeling of the onion. It's one layer at a time. It's one piece. And each piece gets you closer to that core you. And there's many times I thought I was at the core and found more to get rid of and more to get rid of. And I'm sure there's still a lot to get rid of. But when I say get rid of, it's let go of. It's like, I don't have to hold on to this anymore. This isn't true. This is crap that I fed myself. Words and expectations that weren't real. And we all have the power to do that. It's so beautiful that you have the power to move forward and to let things go away. And I have this challenge out there too. When you're trying to let go of something, think about what you're going to let in, because we're not getting rid of things. But I want some peace. When I can let go of X, the peace is going to come in. When it's time, if I can let go of this, I have more time. What is it that you're going to let in? And we focus on the gain. It's not as hard as when you just focus on the let go.
Yeah, moving towards possibility and hope is always more powerful than like living out of loss, I think. I mean, hope is a discipline. It's a decision. It's not something we just stumble into. We have to believe that better is coming and work towards that better. So I totally agree. You can't just abandon, and because then all that will do is, without a plan of like what you will let in, without a plan of what's coming, your brain will freak out that change is happening without a solution. And it will make it even harder to give up the thing. And so, like, that's a key. I'm so glad you brought it up. That's a key to this whole process, is knowing what you want.
Focus on what you're getting. And it feels so lighter.
Mm-hmm.
You're not pulling as much. And I think of that, okay, I'm going to date myself. But at one time, there was a poster that you put on your wall with a cat holding on. And like, is it Friday yet? And when we hold on out of I just can't let go. I can't. Instead of, I'm choosing to figure out how to release this.
Yeah.
And what am I going to get from it?
Yep.
What are you getting from it? That is what we're looking for. It's not letting go. The letting go that's just going to happen. But the second you start letting in the other stuff, that grip, that holding on till Friday goes away.
Agreed.
Hope, I think, is knowing that there's hope and we can be different. We can get out of that. Oh, one of the self-help things I went to one time way back when, they called me the do loop. They gave everybody a nickname of what they saw their patterns were. And it's like, do loop, that is so dumb. But that's exactly what I did. My whole life was do, 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 do. And I needed some be. And I think you and our friend and everybody can benefit from letting the joy, the peace, the calm, the hope back in.
Absolutely. I am constantly thinking about hope these days and thinking about belonging. It is the second book that I'm writing with Erin, has a lot to do with belonging and how we belong to ourselves and each other, and what technology has done to affect and change that. And it all feels very hopeless when you read algorithms and who pays for them and all of those very, very real and big dragons we have to slay. And I'm reminded of the G.K. Chesterton quote, which is, we don't tell children fairy tales to tell them that dragons exist. We tell them fairy tales to tell them that they can defeat the dragon. And that's what hope is. It is not a blind, stupid thing. It's not what, they say to Andy Dufresne in Shawshank. It's not the hope that'll kill you. In sports it is, for sure. The hope of championships just wears you down when you don't do it that much. But in true factor, hope is an animating feature of our lives, and how we negotiate hope and what we hope for and who we hope with. All of those things are like how we orient our lives, really, how we move through the world. And hope is an incredibly powerful choice that we need to treat with more respect than I think we do.
We talked a little bit about that belonging. And as we start to switch and as we start to change, our friendships may change because we become different. And I liken it to ice cubes love other ice cubes, and they're happy being around ice cubes. And lukewarm water loves being around lukewarm water. And you put an ice cube in it and they kind of feel funny. They don't quite fit. Something isn't quite right. Boiling water loves to be with boiling water. So as you move from an ice cube to a lukewarm, your friendships might change, but you're still going to have a tribe. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have our friends transition with us. And sometimes we're not. And guess what? It's not a loss. It's a gain. And when you look at those new friendships that keep you in your new state of mind, you now belong again. And it wasn't, I know, so many people dwell on the loss, but looking at the gain gives you so much more hope. I know a really good friend who went through multiple relationships that she thought were forever, but they didn't change with her. And, that's okay. A relationship can be forever or can be for now. This is what's working for now. And tomorrow may be different. I've been very blessed with a husband that transitioned with me. Does that mean I'm cooler than anybody else? No, that doesn't mean anything. If you're able to, I think you're so much stronger if you've had to transition through multiple people and learn new people. And that is what's cool. So take what's going on in your life and find the joy and the coolness of it.
Yeah, there's times I will look around and just say, how did I get here? Like, what is this moment? How did this moment happen? There's a real sacred nature to wonder, I think, too, which is, a little of what you're talking about. That if we can breathe and remember that the world is bigger than our tasks and kind of all those other things. And there are folks that will talk about that as, look up at the stars and look at, take a moment in the flowers. All of that's great. I am outdoorsy in that I read on patios. I am not so I'm more like outsidesy. I'm not necessarily outdoorsy. I love a good walk, could do with a mild hike. Camping is punishment in my life. So it's just not for me. So when I think of wonder, I think of music and I think of writing and I think of things that humans have created, but also looking at all of this stuff where I just sit there for a minute and say, I am so small and I am so loved and I am so small. And how do I move through the world with the discipline of wonder and with the discipline of recognizing I just like all of this. Like a couple weeks ago, I got to do something really cool at a hockey game that I had never gotten to do before, which was ride the Zamboni machine. And I think that's one of those things that even people who aren't hockey fans know and want to do. I don't know. I've been a hockey fan for a while, and a sports fan for longer. But I was on the ice and he was whipping around so fast. And I happened to know the individual who was driving. So I was, chatting with him and asking questions and kind of everything else. And then at one point he said, just be quiet and listen. Just listen, look around the arena and listen. And it's a piece of that experience I'll never forget, of the sound of the whoosh over the ice and the dulled noise of the arena and all those kind of other things where you just sit there and say, somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. And I must have done this thing that other people may say I deserve, or I don't, but I've done nothing to earn. It was just given. It was this thing that happened that was great. And I'm so grateful for it. And the more I can recognize those moments in my life, the more centered I am. And also, the less overwhelmed I am by everything else, the less angry I am at everything else. We know from research that the average, boiling point of humans in America, particularly, I've not seen research from other places, but anecdotal evidence would tell us this is true, is much, much we're all closer to our boiling point than we have been before. Road rage incidences are up. Physical altercations at bars are up. Shootings are up. Everything is up since lockdowns, honestly. That's when it all started going up. And that's terrifying and overwhelming. And that's not even touching both our personal lives and even bigger things. And so the more we can focus on, okay, there's still good here. I can still breathe. I can have fun. I can make sure that I know who I am. I can make sure that I'm sleeping. I can do all of these things to fight against my own personal burnout. And that doesn't mean I don't care about what's outside of me. That means I'm controlling what I can, which is my life. And again, because burnout makes us feel so incredibly out of control, the moment we can take control and structure our lives to our own emotional terms, whether we can do to physical or not. You can't do anything about having 3 kids. You can't do anything about having the job you have necessarily. You can't do anything about more external structures. Lots of burnout advice is take some bubble baths or quit your job. That's not helpful. Most of us hate bubble baths, or we don't have a bathtub. And there's very few of us that can quit our job, especially right now in this economy. That's useless. So how do we control our personal selves amidst this life that feels so incredibly uncontrollable is the core question of burnout mitigation, recovery, and prevention.
Yeah. And that first step, what is that first step for you? We all have a different first step. Kristen, this has been beautiful. I think extremely helpful. Understanding it's just where we are. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with where you're at, but you don't have to stay there. And there are steps you can take. So thank you so much. Please share with our friend a little bit about you, how to get a hold of you, or where your books are at, and what's that one first step that they might be able to try to see if it helps them this week?
So I am incredibly blessed to co-own my network, my family network of companies, as I said, with my little brother, and we're called Abbey Companies. So my division is called Abbey Research. It's ABBEY. For a host of reasons, you can email me and ask about, it's a great story as to why we are called Abbey, where there's nobody in our family called Abbey. Fantastic story. And we are located in Philadelphia. I'm very, very passionate about the city of Philadelphia. You can find me on the internet at drkristenspeaks.com. And the Kristen is with an E-N because we're Danish and not Swedish. So E-N. Our book is on Amazon. It is called The Culture of Burnout, Why Your Exhaustion is Not Your Fault. Everything I said today is found in there and expanded a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. You can find a link to the book on that website or on Amazon.com. We're not creative. It's there. There's an audiobook, a Kindle, and a paperback. I would absolutely love to continue any conversation that you've been having in your head. I would love to continue it with you out loud and help walk through what this can look like. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to help people figure out what their R's are. And speaking of that, the thing I would encourage you to do is think of the friend that you really like, not like an obligation friend, not like the one that you're still friends with because your kid met them at gymnastics 10 years ago, No, think of the friend that you love that you miss and call them.
I could do that. That is a good one because we speak on text way more than we speak on the phone. And just that voice would be so calming to know
You're not
that
bothering
there's-
them,
Yeah.
and they're not annoyed that you called, and they're not overwhelmed. If you leave a voicemail, they'll call you back. This is much lower stakes than we think it is.
Ah, that's beautiful. Yes. Let's call a friend or more. If you feel so much joy when you're done, call the next one. Because, feed yourself. It's like smorgasbord. Take it, pick it, eat it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining. Friend, this is not about medical advice or mental advice. It is something that we've done. We're not doctors for medical, but ways we found to get through our burnout and just want to share it so less people have to suffer from that very frustrating, I can't do anything about it feeling. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.